Open almost any anatomy textbook or science website, and you'll find a famous piece of trivia. It says that if you took every blood vessel in an adult human body and laid them end to end, the network would stretch for 100,000 kilometers. To put that scale into perspective, that is a physical distance long enough to wrap around the Earth's equator 2.5 times. But there is a biological constraint here. The human body relies on a single fist-sized heart to pump fluid through that entire system, and the average adult only possesses about 5 to 6 liters of total blood volume, which sets up an immediate physical paradox. We have to ask how a closed biological system containing barely enough liquid to fill a medium-sized bucket could possibly maintain pressure across a 100,000-kilometer pipeline. If we actually calculate the fluid dynamics of this myth, the numbers fall apart. Most of that hypothetical 100,000 kilometers would be microscopic capillaries. Filling a network of that size would require nearly 5 liters of blood. It would absorb almost all of it. That left a massive deficit for the rest of the body. The larger delivery pipes, the major systemic arteries and veins, would be left completely empty. Without any fluid remaining in the main vessels, your blood pressure drops to 0. This triggers an immediate and fatal circulatory collapse. If the famous textbook fact were accurate, a human being would essentially bleed to death inside their own body. The math behind the trivia has to be flawed. To figure out where the numbers went wrong, we look back to 1919. The calculation originates with respected Danish physiologist August Krogh, who was studying how oxygen diffuses into muscle tissue. Krogh's work in this field actually won him a Nobel Prize. Because of his immense authority, his calculations were widely accepted and rarely audited. But Krogh based his math on a hypothetical adult weighing 143 kilograms, carrying an impossible 50 kilograms of pure skeletal muscle. On top of that, he drastically overestimated the network's density, assuming 2,000 capillaries per square millimeter. Using this mathematical ghost of a giant, Krogh artificially inflated the length of the vascular system, accidentally creating a biological myth that persisted for a century. Krogh realized his math created a paradox with the body's actual fluid limits. To fix it, he proposed the recruitment theory. He claimed the body keeps most capillaries pinched off and empty at rest, opening them only during extreme exercise. It wasn't until the early 2000s that modern physiologists fully audited the math. They threw out the giant and used normal human metrics, 23 kilograms of average muscle mass, and a realistic density of 300 capillaries per square millimeter. With the variables corrected, the math finally aligned with reality. The true total length of an adult human's vascular network is somewhere between 9,000 and 19,000 kilometers. Because this network is significantly smaller, the circulatory system doesn't need to pinch off and hoard empty pipes. Modern science shows that resting capillaries flow continuously, maintaining a very low red blood cell concentration to keep the pressure stable. The cardiovascular system operates through a highly calibrated dynamic flow of plasma, scaled exactly to the 5 liters of volume we actually possess. Looking at this diagram of the cardiovascular system, you can see the high-pressure, thick-walled arteries branching out from the central heart, progressively narrowing as they distribute blood out to the extremities. Here, in this microscopic view, we reach the actual exchange sites, the capillaries. These pathways are only a single cell thick, creating a highly permeable mesh where red blood cells can physically deliver oxygen and nutrients into the surrounding tissue. To drive fluid through thousands of kilometers of microscopic resistance requires immense mechanical endurance. The human heart, a muscle roughly the size of a fist, beats 100,000 times a day just to maintain the required pressure. It manages to feed billions of cells simultaneously, filtering and recycling the same 5 liters of fluid around the clock without stalling out. 19,000 kilometers of blood vessels won't wrap around the globe 2.5 times. But it still equates to roughly half the Earth's circumference. Packing half the circumference of the planet in living, pulsating tissue neatly organized beneath the skin of a single person is an astonishing biological achievement. It also serves as a reminder of how the scientific method works. Even the most widely repeated textbook facts are subject to audit, revision, and correction when new data becomes available. The physiological reality of how we survive perfectly balancing fluid volume, pressure, and microscopic scale, is a far greater masterpiece than the myth it replaced.